Okay, I'm late, but I'm here. I'm sorry that I'm late, guys. There was a technical difficulty. Let me get my Instagram going and we can get this crushing doubt Q&A going as soon as possible. Let me just go live on Instagram and then we're all set. My apologies for being late. We had a technical difficulty which I finally resolved and we are ready to go. Okay. All right, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. Welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A, Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm here as always to talk about mind-body issues. So these are symptoms that we have. They're true physical symptoms, but they are coming from our feelings and our thinking. Our brain is driving these symptoms. And those symptoms need to get under control somehow, but to do it, we've got to get control of the mind. So this is what I do. I'm a psychologist. I had 8 years of chronic everyday back pain, and I resolved them through changing how I was thinking about things. And mostly it was just from information. So we can work to get the right information and it changes how we're thinking and then it changes what goes on in the body. Now I'm going to say hi to a couple of people, then I'm going to talk about how we're going to do this Q&A. First of all, Harvin and Helen, really great to see you. I did a great interview with the two of them. They are couples counselors. They have some great theories about relationships and how to make relationships work. So great to have you here. Rita, thank you for joining on Instagram as well. She's a great coach in the mind-body field and is trained in my system. And I'm going to talk about my system in a minute because you need to know how I'm talking through these ideas. How are you going to think through your mind-body experience? So I had 8 years of chronic everyday back pain, and I didn't think I was going to get better. But when I discovered the works of Dr. John Sarno, that's when it started to change. And the things that started to change were information. I found out that the structures of the body that I thought were causing the pain, things like herniated discs or, pulled muscles or whatever it was, I realized from reading Dr. Sarno that was not the case. What was really happening was that my mind was making my whole body tense. And I was being told, well, people develop back pain. We get back pain as we get older. That's all not true. And I didn't know it. So Dr. John Sarno, very scientific, very thorough and educated doctor, he looked at all kinds of studies. He followed this with patients to see how it played out. And what he found is that when he talked to his patients about what was going on with them, they got much better than anything he did for physical reasons. So began mind-body treatment in the modern era from Dr. Sarno. There has been a long history of mind-body understanding throughout our history. If you look at literature and history throughout, people knew this, but they lost track of it. And when did they do it? According to Dr. Sarno, and I think he's right about this, it happened around the time imaging techniques came out. When these imaging techniques came out, we saw all kinds of things that looked really scary. And I'll tell you, anybody's MRI, probably over the age of 35 at least, is going to look like a train wreck. And we're going to say, oh, you should have pain here and you should have pain here. But you know what? It does not correlate. So when I got the right information, I got relief, and I got relief quickly. So head to toe, you can get relief from these mind-body symptoms. I have a rule of thumb. If your body can do it, the mind can use it. Think about that. The body has thousands of functions, and it can do all of them. And if the mind can co-opt that and make a symptom because of emotional experience or because of how you're thinking about things, if you're really scared or having a lot of doubt, as I put it, then those symptoms can really act up. So how are we going to deal with this? I'm going to talk about that, and then we're going to dive into questions. I developed a system because when I was reading Dr. Sarno, I loved what he said. He was incredibly helpful to me, and he saved my life. But he didn't, and I don't mean this critically of him, but just something I wished for. I wished that he had been able to lay it out a little more specifically, what to do, what to think, when. And so I thought about all of these things, and I realized, I have a lot of information about that. As a sufferer, over those 8 years, I didn't realize it, but I was gathering information. I was gathering questions, and I was gathering information. And ultimately, what I came to see is that your mind-body experience is driven, and mine too, anybody's, is driven by feelings, thinking, and your relationship with yourself. So there's these 3 areas that determine your mind-body experience. I started to call this the columns because when I started working with people after I was better from my back pain, I would ask them to divide a sheet of paper into 3 columns just so that we could start organizing. How's your feeling? The emotional experience. How's your thinking? How is your relationship with yourself? And I named the columns the emotions column for feelings, the doubt column for thinking, because it's not just any thinking that leads to symptoms, but it's doubt that leads to symptoms when we're really not sure what was going on, or we're afraid, or we're just thinking about it wrong. And then thirdly, I named the power column, which is just my language for how you are at peace or aligned with yourself or not. So if you're not, it's low power. If you are, it's high power. And these different columns describe different ways the symptoms behave. The symptoms that were like my back pain, which are seemingly chronic. I never use the word chronic because I don't believe in it, unless it is for purely medical terms, which, by the way, if you haven't gotten checked out by a doctor and you're not sure, get checked out by a doctor. But once you've been checked out by doctors, and typically people who come to see me have seen many, it's mind-body. So the kind of symptom I was having with the back pain was a doubt column symptom. These are symptoms that are seemingly chronic. They're very stubborn. They're very high level usually, and they don't budge. And it is because we stay in the same thinking, and that leaves us in the same physiology. On the other hand, what I found is that acute onsets and upticks in symptoms came from my feelings, my emotional state. And so that's the emotions column. That's where we resolve acute onsets and upticks. Again, just to review, if we break up the doubt, those seemingly chronic symptoms start to give way. They start to move around, and then we can start to see other things. You got to remove doubt to see other things. In the emotions column, you can start to control acute onsets and upticks in symptoms. And lastly, in the power column, you can, by altering your relationship with yourself to be more aligned, the symptoms don't need to communicate a message to you anymore. The message is received, and the symptoms aren't needed anymore, and you move past even symptom plateaus, where at some low level, your symptoms are hanging on. Okay, I'm going to say hi to a couple more people, then we're going to dive into questions. Bana Bonita, thanks for joining us on Instagram. And Sarah Kelly Burke, thanks for joining all the way from England. Hopefully it helps that we're an hour earlier than we used to be. All right, Hillel says, hi, Dan and all. Hillel, great to see you. Karen Isaacs is here. Great to see you, Karen. Susan Serena says, hi, Dan and Crushing Out family. I love that feeling of closeness. And I'm going to explain some of the resources on my website that actually help people feel so close in this community. Thanks for saying hi, Susan. And Patty Martin says hi to Susan herself. Then she said, I can't see Dan. Now I can. Okay, so I'm sorry you couldn't see me before, but I'm glad you can now. I'm not sure what the issue was. If it was on my side, I apologize. Okay, we're going to get into some questions. Then at some point, I'm going to pause and just talk about some of the resources available to you. But I will mention one just briefly, which is my book, Crushing Doubt, which is on Amazon. It is the best way to not only get an introduction to my work, but to get a full comprehensive view of the mind-body experience. I talk about everything on there, about why you don't have to doubt about having mind-body symptoms, how it all fits together in one big picture, what my system is, how to use it, what the implications are. So I really encourage you to check it out. And if you have checked it out and had a great experience with it, please consider leaving a review on Amazon. It helps people when they look at it to say, this person used it and it helped them, especially if it helped you actually get better. Noting that in a review, people, they eat that up because they're looking for solutions. All right, let's get to some questions. Hillel has a question in on YouTube. He said, one of my emotional themes is feeling danger when I'm alone in new places. That makes a lot of sense to me. Then Hillel said, I generally understand why it makes sense and how it connects to the prolonged trauma I experienced in high school. But knowing that doesn't help me feel in power or out of danger. What can I do today to start changing that so that next time I feel a little less unsafe? Okay, I really like the way you phrase that question, Hillel, because you're asking a question in such a way that if you got that answer, it really would help you. And you are noting the good stuff, which is, this is making sense. It fits with what I know. These symptoms are making sense. What they're saying makes sense. My emotions make sense. But now the next step, what do I do about it? So a lot of the work that I do is adjusting to the emotional information we get. Once doubt comes down, you can learn about the emotions, and then everything flows towards power. And Hillel, this is a power column question. What can I do to feel a little less unsafe? So, going back to what you were saying, you're feeling danger when you're all alone in new places. There's multiple solutions to any problem. And you're going to have to find the thing that really works for you. But Hillel, one thing that I can suggest here is to adjust your relationship with yourself at that moment. You're feeling alone in that situation, and I imagine you're feeling that you need someone else or something along those lines. You need some kind of safety, and you need it in the form of someone else. One of the things that I like to do is remember the power of aloneness. When you remember that that your safety with yourself matters more than anything, then you can really settle into the idea that you don't actually need anything from anyone. You don't need to talk to anybody. It's like you're free suddenly to be just like a person walking through a museum looking at paintings. You don't have to be pressured in any way. That differentiation that you can feel between yourself and others is one way that you can learn to feel safer. Now, that's one suggestion. But I'll also say you're the one who knows what you need most. So I'd ask yourself, what do I need? Sometimes people need to be able to tell people what they're feeling. And if they don't feel safe. If that's the case, go ahead and tell somebody. I get overwhelmed in these situations. And maybe that takes the pressure off in some way. Hillel, I won't know the answer to that question of what will do it necessarily, but I would ask yourself, what do I need? Do I need to let myself be quiet? Do I need to tell someone something? Do I need to have that differentiation and feel that I'm okay alone? There are these seemingly little tweaks, but they end up being really, really big. So you're onto the right thing, Hillel. You're asking, what can I actually do? And I love how you phrase a little less unsafe. Let's start small. Let's make an adjustment that makes some kind of difference. So target one part of the experience that you hate, and the more specifically you understand it, the more you'll be able to get an answer to what to do. Let's do some follow-up with that. By the way, when I answer any question on here, think about it in terms of how it fits with you. I don't want this to just be you waiting to get one question answered. I want it to be more about how does this fit with the whole system and how does it apply to you? Also, follow up. You've got to get full answers to your questions to your satisfaction. And even if I'm not giving that in that first time, I'm trying to. And I just need another question to know where we need to go next. All right. Luann Davidson, thank you for joining us here. And Laura Brown, thank you for joining us here as well. Scotty Stiles, and it's good to see you as well. He said, hello, it's Dan Week. He said that because on the ATNS website, ATNS is one of the main mind-body nonprofit organizations. I just presented about doubt with Christina Sarno-Horner last night, and Scotty saw me there. So great to see you again. Okay. Thanks, Luann. Thanks for saying thank you. All right. Karen Isaac says, can't be in, we'll listen later. Why does sometimes telling symptoms to scram work? Sometimes not caring, different tools, different days. Sometimes nothing works, so I don't try. So I understand what you're saying, Karen, but this is one of the reasons that the columns can be particularly helpful. They understand that mind-body experience is moment to moment. It's never going to be the same. Now, there are going to be times where there's similar moments and where you can use the same intervention more than once. I've used each intervention hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of times, but you need to know which the moments are. And so I would say, Karen, the key is to understand the moments a little bit more specifically. So when you're getting just kind of overwrought about the symptoms and you're caring too much, the not caring may be the thing that neutralizes that. But if you're feeling really scared and then you try not caring, good luck with that. That's not going to work because at that time, you're too afraid to have not caring work. There, you're going to need some kind of reassurance, some kind of sense of safety. And sometimes that's going to come from telling the symptoms to scram and remembering that you're powerful. Other times, you'll try that, but you won't feel powerful. So I'd say the bottom line here, Karen, is the intervention that works for that day is the right intervention. It's the one you've been looking for, and you will get clues to what is right or what is not based on the specific nature of the moment. Think about it from that fear standpoint. If you're really afraid, sometimes getting really angry can alleviate some of that fear. And that's why telling the symptom to scram can really work when you're more afraid, I think. But you're not going to be able to get yourself to not care when you're afraid. So you got to understand the moment. Now, Karen, let's do follow-up, but I know that you can't be in and you're going to listen later. But we can do follow-up on this idea. To get better from mind-body symptoms, it is an ongoing conversation. First with me a lot of the time, and then later with yourself. It's a lot of good self-talk has to happen to get to the place you need to get to. All right, Karen, I hope that at least began to answer the question. Sarah Kelly Burke has a question. This is coming in from England. Hi, Dan. I'm back. Welcome back. So I've uncovered a problem pattern. Patterns are very good to recognize. I distrust people and myself, and I'm a chronic overthinker. This is keeping me stuck. Help. Then she said, so I guess I'm in a loop. I distrust. I know what I need to do to get out of this. I research. I get lots of contradicting info. I freak out with confusion. I overthink. Then I go back to distrust, and round we go. All right. So I'm going to make a comment to Sarah, though it is designed for everybody here to think about and see if you can apply to yourself. One of the ways that I think about these things is once I locate which column I'm working in, I'm in a better spot. I understand more. Now, Sarah, this won't surprise you, I'm sure, but this is the doubt column. This is distrust and confusion and feeling stuck and all the things that come with doubt-related thinking. And I don't say that critically at all. It's empathically, but it's also just zeroing in on what are we looking at. So we're working in the doubt column. All right, now that locates me a little bit about where I'm going to do the work. Once I've located the column and I understand the nature of the problem, which you just outlined beautifully, you know what that merry-go-round is like, then we can identify what I call an action step. An action step is how are you going to change your thinking in some form to get yourself to a different space. Now, what I just talked about with Karen, she was talking about different action steps, different tools for different days. You need a couple of tools for this one, and I'm going to lay out at least one for you to think about. And this is one that really worked for me. I found when I was getting better that I would get contradicting information, and that was very, very difficult and upsetting. So what did I decide? I decided that it was just going to be me and Dr. Sarno. I wasn't going to trust anybody else. This is something that I call shrinking the circle of trust. And I also raised my standards for what kind of answers I would accept. You know, for people who would say like, well, we don't totally know, but we think it's this. No, that does not work. That's not an answer that I'm going to accept. All right. Or if they would say, well, okay, this is happening because of this structural thing. And I'd be like, but how come it comes and goes? That doesn't work. Any answer that doesn't work is out. So Sarah, one thing I would say is, you know, in terms of my book and what I say, it is designed to have no stone unturned. As much as possible, I answered every single question that I could think of from my 8-year experience of back pain, from my 14 years of experience working afterwards with other people about it, every single question. And my question to you is, can you decide who you're going to trust and have it be a small group of people, or maybe even just one? Might be me. Now that's one. Another part of the work, though, Sarah, and I know I've mentioned this before, is that what I would call power column work. It relates to what I said to Hillel. We need to get you to a place where you can know your own reality and know it so strongly that it doesn't matter what anybody else says. We've got to get you to feel that there's at least certain things in your life that you can get settled on and know are true. And that's the end of the story. So I think that's part of the reason that you keep getting into this cycle, is that you don't believe you can get to that power. You don't believe that you can get to a place where you truly can trust you. I say this also partially from knowledge of Sarah, from having interacted with her before. We've talked about this, right? And I understand this is a huge part of where you're at, Sarah. So those are a couple things that I'll say. Let's do some follow-up as needed. But you can absolutely get out of this loop. It's not happening because you're this overthinker or you're a person who doesn't trust other people. You've had reason to not trust other people. What I want to show you is there are reasons to trust certain people. And there are reasons to distrust many other people, especially about the mind-body process. Let's shrink that circle of trust and let's work on growing your power, and you will get out of this loop. Any problem in the columns can be solved by identifying the source of that problem. Okay, I hope that helps, Sarah, but please let me know. Okay, Susan Sereno says, I just cleaned my house and I had burning pain while I was cleaning and I'm still feeling it. I can't figure out why. I know it probably is emotions, but I need help getting to them. Then she said, I have symptoms all over and new ones too. I notice I clench my fists and they hurt. I also have some leg pain now. I'm trying to just keep going. All right, now we can do better than just keeping going, but let's back up for a sec, Susan. I want to remind you of something. All right, so Susan is in my groups, my group membership, and I want to mention this because it's a great resource for people. On my website, which is www.crushingdoubt.com, you can get all access to all kinds of different resources. The book itself you've got to get from Amazon, but there's a link on the website. So go to the website because it's all there. In addition to the book, I have teaching seminars where there are 8 different courses. They're 75 minutes each, and I take you through the entire mind-body understanding. Why does the mind-body field talk about things in the way that they do? One person says this, and one person says this. All those different sources, you've got to help. You need help understanding how do they all fit together. Those seminars do that really, really well. The book encompasses everything, but the seminars really zero in on that. So you can get the seminars there. Another thing that you can get, though, is access to meeting with me directly on Zoom calls in my group membership. And I have different types of groups that you can investigate, but one of the best values and easiest ways to see me is my group membership. The group member, and I'll get back to Susan's question in a second. Hold on, Susan. Sit tight. So my group membership, I'm saying this because Susan's in the group and she's getting benefits, and I'm about to say something about something we talked about in group. But my group membership is only $100 a month, and you get to meet with me up to 3 meetings a week. They are Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern to 3 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Eastern to 12 p.m. Eastern, and Wednesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern to 8 p.m. Eastern. I tried to space them out so there were different times that worked for different regions of the entire world because I do get an international following. And you can come to any of those. For $100, you get those 3 sessions. That's 6 hours a week, 24 hours a month for $100. So you're ending up paying like $4 a session. It's a very good value. And what I do is, it's somewhat similar to here, except there's so much more give and take. When I read these questions, I have all kinds of questions that I wish I could ask, and they may have questions about what I said. There's a lot more give and take so that we can get a much more pinpointed answer. Now, Susan, back to Susan. In the groups, we talked about the fact that when you used to clean and your mom would be very kind of all over you about whether you did a good job, and even worse, there was abuse involved. I'll leave it to you to talk about because, it's your personal story. You can share anything you want. I won't share anything that we talked about in group directly in that way. But I do think it's important for us to note, you did notice that connection with your mom being abusive and cleaning was very clear. What's happening here is you're almost doubting that link. Even though you know there has to be that link, you're not feeling it directly. And this is where emotions column work comes into play. Susan is very much in the emotions column part of the process. The flow of the columns is bring down doubt, learn about emotions, and then everything flows into power. Susan and I worked on doubt for a long time. She still has some doubt, right, Susan? But it's down enough that we can now do the emotional work. And the emotions and power column are both emotional columns. The emotions column, though, is where you discover what's there. That's about awareness. The power column is where you figure out what to do about it. All right? Now, Susan, there's something going on here where you intellectually know there's something about the emotions, but you're not figuring out how to access them yet. So this is the part where we would go in and we'd build out what I call your emotional themes menu. And there's an important distinction between emotions and emotional themes. I'll give you an example. Gaslighting. When people make you doubt your own reality, that's not a feeling, but it is an emotional theme. It's a thing that happens to people over and over. And when that happens, they could have a symptom, an onset or an uptick. And Susan, these are onsets and upticks. They're not always there. It happened when you were cleaning or when you're doing a particular thing. So what we need to do is really develop those themes. And what you'll be able to do then is look at your themes menu and think, which of these is bothering me right now? And you'll be able to get to it. All right? We're going to do that, but I think there's a lot of rage there, probably towards your mom or anyone else who wasn't protecting you, or maybe towards adults who don't protect kids in general. And that's leading to a lot of these symptoms. Amir Norhani, thanks for coming here, my friend. Keep working at it. I know you're working to understand these mind-body symptoms. Understanding is the key. That's what changes the mind that controls the body. Soaring High, thank you for coming here, and let me know if you do have any questions. Okay. Patty Martin says, I enjoyed your podcast last night. That was the webinar that I did with Christina Sarno-Horner. I had to leave early. Where can I watch a rerun? So that is for ATNS members. And if for people who aren't members, it's $12 a month, so it's not a huge expense. And you can get lots of great information there and content. And if you wanted to watch the video of me and Christina Sarno-Horner talking about the role of doubt in treatment, and she's fantastic. She grew up with her father as Dr. Sarno. He taught her well about, not doing things that lead to doubt. And so we were very simpatico about that. But thanks for saying that, Patty. On the ATNS website is where to get that. Okay, Warren Henson says, hi, Dan and everyone. Good to see you, Warren. As you know, my pain is worse right now. I like to put that in parentheses because it's not going to stay that way. Is the doubt desperately trying to keep me focused on the body, or is that doubt desperately trying to keep me focused on the body, or is it falsely optimistic? No, it's not falsely optimistic. You're exactly right. That's all it's trying to do. And you hit on something that we also talked about in group, which is when you stop looking for solutions so much and you just calm your body, sometimes that's the thing that works. It's just like what Karen was saying, different tools for different times. Part of your system is to stop looking for answers all over the place and trust that you've got something and just keep doing the things that are working. I think when you say it's falsely optimistic, guess what? That's doubt talking. Doubt's saying, yeah, no, that's falsely optimistic. No, it isn't. Doubt's running out of options, Warren. We chased it into a corner, and it's fighting hard, but it doesn't have many places to go. And ultimately, that's what happens when you crush doubt. You chase it off of a cliff. I'm mixing my metaphors, but it does work. Okay, now Warren then said, Dan, forgot to add that I have removed many doubts, including level 1 doubt. However, the physical pain is worse. That's because of the level 3 doubt. Level 1 doubt is doubt of whether it's mind, body, or not. Level 2 doubt is my mind, body symptom harder to conquer than others? And level 3 doubt is, can I do it? Warren, this has always been the sore spot for you, level 3 doubt. We chased it right where it needs to go. Meanwhile, you said that, however, the physical pain is worse. Even that is a lie. Now, I understand it's also true in some capacity, but it's not always been worse. You recently watched a podcast episode, felt in power, and it went down to a 4. So don't say the physical pain is worse. Say the fear is worse. The fear is worse right now. Yes, the physical pain and symptoms are following suit, but they're not the source. The fear is, and I need you to remember that. Okay. I'm going to take a couple more questions. We're going to need to wrap up relatively shortly because unfortunately we got a late start, but I'll see if I can get every question in. Laura said, hi, Dan. How do I feel angry/frustration in a healthy manner so I don't cause any more mind-body issues or flare-ups? Okay. Oh, she has a follow-up to that. Most of my mind-body is from verbal emotional abuse, and I believe I need a healthier way of dealing with anger and frustration. I think that's absolutely right, Laura. You're very much on the right track. And I'm going to give you some ideas, but these are just ideas. You're the one who's going to need to kind of test them out, think them through, and let me know what works best. And I'm not saying you have to do this, but if you came to group, we could crank this out really fast. Talk about, well, what's going on here? I could get that direct feedback from Laura and then tell her even more details about how to get better. But let's take a stab at it anyway, Laura. So there are some action steps that I feel like might apply in your situation. One is, it's something I call putting the blame where it belongs. A lot of people have a hard time putting the blame where it belongs. It ends up flowing back to themselves, and that causes symptom flare-ups. Whereas raging at the right source and without feeling guilty or bad about it, that can alleviate a lot of those symptoms. So Laura, I think at base, a lot of this is the rage is going at you. somehow, and you may not even realize it. Like, even when you're saying to yourself, I hate that this happened to me, you might actually be saying underneath that, but it happened to me because I'm crap. And there's an attack on yourself, which of course is not true, but there's an attack on yourself. So try to look for, where am I attacking myself, and put the blame where it belongs. That's one. Another potential action step is to dip into black and white thinking. Sometimes we have to not see the shades of gray, and this is very common with kids with their parents. You have to look at your parents and see, if you're seeing shades of gray, you'll think, well, they had a lot on their plate. It's hard to be a person. They did their best, all that stuff. And then you think about all the good stuff they did. That's not dipping into black and white thinking. It's good thinking for some of the time, but not all the time. Sometimes you need to dip into black and white thinking and think things like, trauma rolls downhill. The responsibility in the relationship is 100% on the parent, not the kid. And then you start moving in that direction. Now, if it's with a significant other, you could say, the only job I can do is do a good job for that person. The only job they can do is do a good job for me. Now, of course, we do a good job with ourselves as well. But if they're not doing a good job with you, put the blame where it belongs. It's not because you're not worthy of being treated well. It's because they're not doing a good enough job, and they genuinely aren't. And you can be mad about it in a way that will channel things better in your body. Those are some startup answers, okay? All right. Hillel said, hi, Dan, different subject than mistakes. Sorry. All right, Hillel, get back to me on that, but hopefully I helped you with your earlier question. Susan Sereno says, I hear the connection to cleaning and the abuse, but why is it happening now? And I've cleaned my entire life without pain. Well, Susan, one thing that we can say is, I don't know if I'm right about this, and we'll have to explore it. But it seems to me that your symptom life changed a lot when your mother passed away. And that can often happen. It's like it wasn't safe enough to be mad on this mortal plane until she was gone. I don't know if that's the case for sure, but I have a hunch that that's a big part of it. It also is the case that, these experiences change us. The symptoms themselves are a trauma of their own. And we need to know that. And in addition, we can only hold up so long. I don't care how strong you are. Eventually, you hit a wall. Okay. A couple more questions. We'll wrap up here. Patty Flowers asks, can you repeat the levels, 1, 2, and 3 levels of doubt? This is the first time I'm hearing about this. It's weird because, Patty, these kinds of questions make me really excited because they could be a really nice breakthrough for people who have never heard it before. So, level 1 doubt is, I have doubt that this is mind, body, or not. I wonder if it's structural. I wonder if I'm injured. All that stuff. That's all level 1 doubt. But once you're very clear that it's mind, body, there's still more doubt that can be there. Level 2 doubt can be, yeah, I know it's mind, body, but I think my mind, body symptom is harder to conquer. A very typical kind of experience with that is migraines is a good one, or trigeminal neuralgia is another one. CRPS is another one. These are all diagnoses. I don't believe much in diagnoses, but they are just descriptive. They're all mind-body experiences. They all can be treated with mind-body work, but they lead to people thinking this symptom's harder to conquer than others. That's level 2 doubt. And level 3 doubt is, I know it's mind-body. I know my symptoms every bit as conquerable as anything else, but the reality is reality is not a good way of phrasing it, because this is doubt, and so it's a lie. It's not the reality. But the level 3 doubt is when we say to ourselves, I'm worried there's something wrong with me. I'm too perfectionistic. I'm too anxious. I'm not able to control my own mind. I do this. I. That's level 3 doubt. And they're all forms of doubt because they all stand in the way of you feeling that you can actually get better. And when Dr. Sarno said you must accept the diagnosis to get better, that includes the idea that you can and will get better. That's accepting the diagnosis. That's part of accepting the diagnosis. Hope that helps, Patty. Warren Henson says, thanks, Dan. My pleasure, Warren. Hope that does help. Okay, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. Okay, Sarah Kelly Burke has a follow-up. Yes, it's power. I have no doubt on the cause. I get to a place or like a day where I'm like, yeah, I can do this. And then bam, people say the trauma's stuck in the body. So I never like the phrase stuck in the body, even though I understand why people say it.
The trauma is in the body, but we can release it. She says you need somatics, etc. That's what people say. Whereas I like the idea of teaching my mind daily what's helpful and what's not, and responding calmly to the symptoms. I love that, Sarah. You know what that is? That's you taking power. It's saying, this is not about some mysterious trauma stuck in the body. I got to do this. You guys out there, each one of you, you're the ones who know what you need. Don't listen to anybody else about what you need. You know your instincts. Don't listen to your doubt at the same time. Doubt will sometimes tell you need things that you do not need. But if you can get the doubt down, you'll be clear on what is needed, and then follow what you need. Sarah, you're telling me what you need. What's helpful is teaching my mind what's helpful and what's not, and responding calmly to the symptoms. Great. But then, this is where doubt comes in. But then people tell me the brain won't learn through self-talk and visualization. Bullshit. Yes, it will. And you know it because it's working. It's helping. Also, why wouldn't it? What's going to help is whatever changes the brain, whatever changes our mind and our ways of thinking. But then others know I have but then others I know, let's see, hold on. Basically, is self-talk and teaching your mind daily your new thoughts and maybe some visualization enough? Can I block out the rest of the noise? Listen, everybody's recovery process is individual to them. You're the one who's going to know. And that means there is no one more important in knowing what you need than you. Ever. Even from me. I'm not the one who knows best. You are. Unless your doubt's talking to you, and then I know better. But only if your doubt's talking to you. If your doubt's not dominating things, then you are the one who knows best. So can you block out the rest of the noise? Not only can you, Sarah, I think that is the project of the moment. That is the project of the moment, is to get to a place where you can feel powerful and that you can do this. All right, I'm going to answer just a couple more questions. I'm glad I gave you a little laugh there, Sarah. Soaring High says, what are the reasons some can never overcome their chronic constant issues? For constant back pain, would first going to physical therapy first help? MRI shows bulging discs. Okay, so bulging discs are incidental to the pain, actually. We've seen study after study showing this. Going to physical therapy, that's something that I only recommend. I mostly recommend physical therapy when it brings down doubt. If it convinces you can move it, that you can be safer in it, that you're making gains, then physical therapy is useful. But if physical therapy is feeding the idea that you've got a structural issue, then it's really, really, really not helpful. Now, let me back up to your first question. What are the reasons some can never overcome their chronic constant issues? This will not surprise people, probably, but the main reason that people can't get better from these seemingly chronic issues is because of doubt. If doubt is there, that's why they can't overcome it. And a lot of times you don't even realize you're having doubt, so it sneaks under the radar. But that doubt can come in many forms. It can come because you got really bad information. Or it can come from the fact that you had a family who never made you feel empowered, so you never felt you could get to a place where you could feel good. Lots of different sources for the doubt, but doubt is the number one reason. I want to answer that more, and I wish I could stay longer, but I'm going to wrap up on these next two questions. And then I will be here same time next week. Okay, Hillel said, hey, Dan, different topic. I've been in an uptick for a few hours. So uptick makes me think emotions column. What's going on there? Went out with friends, already in pain from doubt and exercise, felt this huge urge to hide it. Later, they pushed me to join a long trip to Thailand this summer, which for me is super complicated. I dodged again, kept hiding. Hiding, we know, is never a happy place for you. The pain in the onset didn't stop. I'm sure it's connected. Me hiding the pain and suffering is extremely complicated and not a quick solution thing. Actually, I mean this is good news. I understand what you're saying, Hillel. It may not be a quick solution in the power column and all the things that need to happen, but in the emotions column, there are some quick solutions. If hiding is causing the pain, then either be aware of what's painful about hiding or choose to not hide. And just go ahead and say, you know what, I would rather people just know than be in this kind of pain. I'm going to align with myself. You said there's a message I missed. Let me just scroll up. I don't see any message that I missed, Hillel. I'm sorry, Hillel. It looks like I just don't, etc. I don't actually see that, Hillel. I don't know why that didn't show up. Yeah. I don't see that message, Hillel. Put it in again, okay? And I will follow up with that, but I don't see it here for some reason. Okay, last thing. I have level 2 and sometimes 3 doubt. Patty, it's very, very common, but the fact that you've moved past level 1 doubt is actually great. That is great upside. There's a flow to it. A lot of times you got to bring down level 1 doubt first, then you get to level 2 doubt, and then level 3 doubt is usually the last thing standing. Okay, now, Hillel, I don't see the question, and I do have to run, unfortunately. So we're going to continue this. Try to think about it this way, guys. These are ongoing conversations. Keep having conversations with me going after your answers. Whatever you need to know, ask your questions. And then keep having as good self-talk as you can with yourself to give yourself a chance to feel that you can and will get better. Okay? Check out my website, www.crushingdoubt.com, for all of those resources, including the $100 a month membership, which gets you a huge amount of access to me. I can help you implement the system, figure out what needs to happen, and we can even move you towards power. My pleasure, Patty. Thanks for saying thanks. In addition, go to Amazon, get my book. It's the best resource for the most comprehensive view of mind-body experience and how you can and will get better. And that can bring down the doubt. Guys, it is a pleasure. I look forward to working with you again in the weeks to come, the weeks, months, years, whatever it takes. We're going to get it done. But don't make the mistake of thinking it needs to take a long time. We can change your thinking, and we can change it quickly with the right information. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Looking forward to more times ahead.